Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, way back to when the morning air reeked of smoke, damp wool, and the not-so-distant scent of manure. You're not scrolling through your feed or heating up last night's leftovers in a microwave. No, tonight you wake up as a commoner in medieval Britain. The fire has long gone out. Your bones ache from sleeping on straw riddled with fleas. You can hear the rooster crowing before the sun even dares to peek over the hills, and there's no snooze button in sight. The wind bites through the cracks in the timber walls, and your first task of the day, collecting water from a stream, you hope hasn't been fouled by the neighbors upstream. Welcome to your new, entirely inconvenient and mildly horrifying life. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you all tune in from. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins before sunrise, as it must. Because even though your body craves sleep, the rhythm of life here is not dictated by your internal clock or a buzzing alarm. It is ruled by the natural light. When the sky turns pale blue, you move. You're in a rural village, one of hundreds scattered across the rolling green hills of England. Maybe it's 1250. You wouldn't know the year, of course. There's no calendar on the wall. Time isn't marked by months, but by harvests, festivals, and taxes. Your first sensation is the chill, the kind of cold that makes your breath puff visibly in the morning gloom. You share your one-room house, your croft, with your family, and perhaps a few animals, if the winter's particularly cruel. Chickens shuffle at the corner. The pig grunts softly from the pen beside the hearth. There's no such thing as privacy, not for you or anyone else. Not even the lord of the manor gets proper privacy, really. But especially not you. You lift yourself from the bedding straw, wrapped in a linen sack, now damp and sagging, and your feet find the packed earth floor. Your boots, if you have any, are worn and cracked. More likely, you just stuff rags into your shoes, or go barefoot when the season allows. Your breath clouds in the air. Outside, the light of dawn barely kisses the horizon. There's no breakfast waiting, no fresh bread on the table. If you're lucky, your wife, or if you're the wife, you yourself, has stirred up yesterday's pottage from the pot hanging over the hearth. It's thin, mostly onions and barley, maybe a bit of old cabbage if you were fortunate enough to gather some. There's no sugar, no spice. Maybe a bit of salt if you've earned enough, or gathered some from market. The flavor, irrelevant. This is fuel, not cuisine. Your body needs to move. You step outside. The wind hits your face like a wet slap. The village smells of burning wood dung, livestock, and damp leaves. Your first stop is the well or the stream, somewhere to fetch water. Your wooden bucket, carried on a rope or balanced on your shoulder, is heavier than you remember. And it leaks. They all do. The roads are muddy in spring, frozen stiff in winter, and dusty in summer. You tread carefully because one slip can lead to a twisted ankle. And in a world without hospitals, that's a sentence worse than it sounds. You're not just risking a day off work, you're risking starvation for your whole family. Your job depends on your station. You're a villain, a semi-free peasant bound to the land. The Lord owns the fields, and you owe him a portion of your labor, usually 3 days a week, sometimes more. Today's one of those days. You don't argue. You can't. To disobey is to face fines or worse. And you've got your own narrow strip of land to tend, if the Lord's work doesn't bleed you dry first. The manor fields lie beyond the church, which looms at the village center like a silent guardian. Even if you can't read, you know the stories from the sermons. Heaven, hell, the saints, the sins, these shape your world. The priest might be the only man in the village who can read Latin. He knows what day it is, what feast approaches, what penalty is owed for breaking a fast. You nod when you pass him. Even if he smells worse than your pig, he holds power. In the fields, the work begins. You swing a mattock into the soil or push a wooden plow if you're assisting the oxen. You thresh, you winnow, you sow. Your hands blister, then callous, then crack. The sun rises, and still you toil. Your back aches in a way that tells you it will never not ache again. There's no lunch break, just a pause maybe to chew on some stale rye bread. If someone shares a bit of cheese, it's a miracle. The day drones on, broken only by bells from the church or a sudden scream when someone gashes a leg. Blood, dirt, sweat, and sometimes tears, it all mixes in the furrows. And the Lord's reeve, his overseer, watches silently, counting, noting. You pray you meet your quota. When you return home, if the sun hasn't dipped below the trees, there's more to do. Your own garden needs tending. Maybe your roof leaks. Maybe the pigs escaped again. Your children, if they've survived infancy, run half naked and covered in muck. They're old enough to help in the fields by age 7. There's no schooling here, just work, prayer, and survival. Dinner is more pottage, maybe thickened with yesterday's crust of bread. There's no meat unless it's Sunday, or unless you're particularly good at poaching in the Lord's forest, and particularly good at not getting caught. The punishment for hunting the king's deer can be a hand or an eye. When the sun finally sets, the world goes dark. No street lamps, just the moon, the stars, and the faint orange glow from within your croft. You huddle around the hearth with your family. Maybe someone hums a tune. Maybe there's a story, old Arthurian tales, whispered legends from the north, or grim warnings of witches in the woods. You sleep early, not by choice, but because there's nothing else to do. The fire dies down. The cold creeps in. You lie in the straw again, bugs and all. Your muscles throb with fatigue, but there's a strange peace in the stillness. The wind howls through the cracks. The pig snorts in its sleep. And tomorrow you'll do it all again. Now let's keep going, because your story, this ordinary, excruciating, quietly heroic tale of medieval survival, is far from over. You wake before the sun again. Not because you're well rested, but because the rooster never lies. Your back groans as you shift. The straw mattress feels heavier now, soggier from the moisture that seeps in each night, a dampness that never quite leaves. You can smell mildew rising from the corners of the room. The pig is already up, snuffling around for food. One of the children whimpers in their sleep, curled tightly under a rough wool blanket, feet sticking out. Your wife, if you have one, rubs her eyes and pulls herself upright with a soft grunt. There's no time for affection. There's barely time to breathe. Your first thought is whether there's enough food to last the day. Second is whether your shoes will hold up until Sunday. And third, if you're honest, is whether the ache in your stomach is hunger or the beginnings of the ague that swept through the village this month. Brother Allen's been coughing blood, and yesterday you heard the reeve whispering about a burial. But no one will say it out loud. If it's plague, the priest will know, if he's still alive. You don't talk about sickness. You talk about firewood or bread or the weather. Today the sky's clear, a soft mist rising from the thatched roofs around you. That's both blessing and curse. Good for the fields, bad for your joints. Outside, the world smells of wet ash and manure again. The same sour cocktail that greeted you yesterday and will tomorrow. You haul water from the stream again, passing Thomas the weaver. He nods without speaking, balancing a bundle of damp wool. His beard is patchy, caked with some dried substance you don't ask about. He's got 5 children and a wife who hasn't walked since birthing the last. You envy him for his cottage slightly bigger than yours. He envies you for your strong back. Everyone envies something even here. Today's not a manor work day. It's yours at least as far as the law allows. But yours is a slippery thing. You'll use it to mend your thatch pull weeds from your garden strip and check the boundary fence the animals keep rubbing raw. Your land, narrow and ragged, yields barley when it's generous and nettles when it's not. You crouch down, tearing roots from the earth with your bare hands. Your fingernails are black. Underneath your skin is red and raw from the cold. Your eldest boy joins you after a while. He's 10 but already thin and stooped from labor. You remember how he used to laugh at dragon stories and pester the priest for extra wafers. Now he mostly stares quietly, doing as he's told. You hand him the smaller spade, and he starts clearing stones from the edge of the garden. A robin watches nearby, head cocked, waiting for worms. After an hour or two, you hear bells ringing from the church again. The Angelus. Everyone pauses, even if for just a heartbeat. You bow your head. Words run through your mind, not quite prayer, more like a habit. There's comfort in repetition, in knowing the world still turns, even if it turns slowly covered in mud. Around midday, your stomach cramps again. You haven't eaten yet. There's no break scheduled, no lunch hour. But hunger speaks louder than duty sometimes. Inside the fire is low, the pottage pot crusted at the edges. You scrape the sides, add a splash of water, and stir until it looks like food. There's some sour ale to wash it down. It tastes like spoiled apples and wood, but it's safe. Safer than the stream, especially in summer. Your daughter brings in a basket of twigs. She's 6. Her dress is little more than patched scraps, and her hair sticks to her forehead with sweat. She chatters about a hedgehog she saw near the woods. You smile. Then you tell her to stay away from the woods. Everyone knows why. Not wolves, not exactly. It's the men who live there now. Outlaws, deserters, the ones the Reeve doesn't talk about anymore. The afternoon drags. You repair a hoe with twine and a whittled sliver of wood. Your hands are clever despite the cracks and sores. You check the thatch again, always the thatch. The wind from the coast tears it loose, and you can't afford leaks come winter. On your way back in, you notice the neighbor's son watching from behind his fence. He doesn't wave. You remember when he used to before the fever took his sister. Later, you walk into the village. There's a small crowd near the green. A man from the next town over is shouting about salt. He's a peddler, one of the few who travels. His donkey looks exhausted, the panniers on its back sagging under the weight of dried herbs and cloth scraps. You linger just long enough to hear prices. All of them too high. But maybe next week, if you can barter some eggs, if the hen starts laying again. The priest steps out from the church to quiet the crowd. His face is pale, his hands stained with wax from the altar candles. He tells a boy to ring the bell again. There's word from the bishop. A fast approaching. Everyone must abstain from meat for 7 days. You nod not because you care, but because you never have meat anyway. It's easier to obey when obedience costs nothing. Back home you find the pig restless. You check the pen, find the trough nearly empty. You scrape together some old greens, a bit of oat chaff, and dump it in. The pig stares at you with eyes too human. You wonder how long it'll be before you have to kill it. Not for feast, but for survival. Night comes earlier now. Autumn is near. You can feel it in the wind and smell it in the leaves. You eat again, barely. This time a bit of dried peas mashed with turnip. The fire burns low. The children huddle close. Someone coughs. You try not to notice. Your wife knits by firelight, squinting at the yarn. You fix a wooden spoon. It broke this morning. She murmurs something about the miller's daughter expecting again. That makes 4 babies and no husband. No one judges her. Not really. But they whisper. They always whisper. Before bed, you step outside for one last breath. The stars are brilliant, shockingly so. No torches, no lamps, no glow from any window. Just the sky stretching endlessly, impossibly vast. It almost frightens you, that quiet. You go back inside, lie down. The straw pokes your ribs. Your shoulder protests. A flea bites your ankle. You close your eyes, and you do not dream. But morning is coming again, and you will rise again. Let's keep going. Another morning, another gray light spilling through the gaps in the timber slats of your home. You don't even need the rooster anymore, your body knows. It stirs without consent. Sore knees creak like ancient hinges. Your shoulders feel as though weighted down by invisible stones. The fire is out again, and your breath mists in the air. The straw beneath you smells of damp wool and old sweat. You roll to your side slowly, so as not to disturb the child curled up against your spine. They always find your warmth during the night. You're hungry again. Of course you are. You've been hungry every day for as long as you can remember. Not starving, but never quite full. It's a gnawing, patient emptiness, the kind that never screams, but never leaves either. You sip from the wooden cup near the hearth, hoping the water isn't too brackish from the night. It is. Today is market day. The thought brings a flicker of energy to your aching limbs. Not joy, there's very little joy in your life, but anticipation. A break in the routine. A parade of the same faces in different arrangements. A chance to hear rumors from the next village over. Maybe catch a glimpse of a juggler or a toothless minstrel who sings bawdy songs about lords and ladies to get tossed a turnip, or if lucky a coin. You dress quickly, layers of linen coarse and scratchy. Your cloak is thin but passable. The children are up too now. Your youngest is still chewing on a strip of boiled bark. You don't stop her. It keeps her quiet. Your wife wraps a bit of barley bread in cloth. There's half a soft onion in the pouch from yesterday. You'll make do. You're not going to sell much today, just a few eggs and maybe a pot your wife has patched. But even if you don't trade a thing, the walk alone feels like a kind of freedom. The path to the market town is long but familiar. Worn smooth by cartwheels and boots, it cuts through fields and woods. You nod to other villagers you pass on the way. Some carry baskets, others push carts. The sun rises behind you as your feet crunch on gravel and mud. A bird calls in the distance. Somewhere a dog barks. The rhythm of life continues without fuss. By mid-morning, you see the first rooftops. Smoke curls from crooked chimneys. The market square is already swelling with voices and movement. Stalls of rough-hewn timber creak under the weight of goods. There's cloth in bright colors dyed abroad far beyond your imagination, and fish laid out on rush mats, eyes glassy, bodies stinking. Chickens squawk in baskets. A barrel of apples, bruised and small, sits beside a thin man with a scar across his cheek. The smell is overwhelming, a blend of salted meat, animal dung, wood smoke ale, and sweat. The sound is even more intense, haggling, shouting the clink of coins, the occasional crash of pottery. Somewhere a boy plays a flute badly. 2 dogs snarl over a scrap. You find a spot near the edge of the square and set down your goods. The eggs might fetch a few coppers if they're not cracked. The pot might interest someone, though your wife's repairs are crude. You call out softly to passers-by, careful not to appear too desperate. Too much eagerness invites haggling that you can't afford. Someone approaches, a woman with a child on her hip. She eyes your eggs, pokes one gently. She offers a piece of honeycomb and a half-used candle. You accept. It's not coin, but it's something. You can trade the candle later or use it during the long nights. After a while, you stroll through the market, just to see. You pass a cellar of dried herbs, nettles, sage, something called blessed thistle. You recognize none of it, but the old woman behind the stall swears it will cure coughs and drive away evil dreams. You nod politely and move on. You see a priest from another parish arguing with a baker over the price of bread. A man in armor, clearly a soldier or guard, leans against a post eating a meat pie. You wonder where he got the coin for it. Maybe war is more profitable than you thought if you live. There's a cloth cellar with bolts of blue and red fabric. You run your hand over the edge of one. It feels like nothing you've touched before, silky, weightless. You could never afford it, not in 3 lifetimes. But touching it makes you feel briefly like more than a peasant. A juggler appears in the square, catching the children's attention. He tosses apples into the air, spinning them between his hands. One falls and the crowd laughs. He bows low, then makes a lewd joke about a local merchant and a sheep. You laugh even though you shouldn't. It feels good to laugh. A bell rings. Loud, slow. The sound of judgment. You turn toward it and see a man being dragged to the stocks. His hands are bound. A reeve shouts something about theft, 3 loaves of bread. The man protests, but no one listens. He's thrown into the stocks, his head and hands locked in place. The crowd jeers some throw rotten vegetables. You look away. Not because it's cruel, this is life, but because you understand too well what hunger makes people do. By mid-afternoon, your basket is lighter. You've traded most of what you brought. You even managed to get a sliver of cheese. That's for supper. The children will be thrilled. You take a moment to sit near the edge of the square. A woman nearby nurses her child. A boy runs past with a wooden hoop. Life swirls around you, messy and loud and utterly indifferent. You overhear talk of taxes, a new levy for bridge repair, another for the sheriff's men. It never ends. You tune it out. Nothing you can do about it. As the sun begins its descent, you gather your things and begin the walk home. The path seems longer now, and the wind has picked up. You pass the same woods now cast in shadow. You clutch your cloak tighter. The shadows stretch like fingers across the road. Back at the village, the light is fading. Smoke curls from chimneys. The pig is back in the pen. Your wife looks up as you enter and gives you a tired nod. She sees the cheese and smiles just a little. It's the only smile you'll get today. Dinner is simple but warm. A bowl of pottage, a shared bite of cheese. One of the children tries to sing a song they heard at the market. It's nonsense. You laugh anyway. The fire burns low. The wind howls outside. You lie down in the dark. And sleep mercifully comes quickly. But tomorrow will arrive just the same. Let's continue. You awaken to the sound of rain. Not the soft romantic drizzle poets like to write about, but a steady cold drumming on the thatch above your head, loud enough to stir even the pig in its pen and trickle through the roof's weakest seam. A drop lands squarely on your cheek, startling you into consciousness. You blink in the gloom. It's not yet dawn, but the day has begun. That's how it is here. Time doesn't ask your permission. It just presses onward. The room smells of wet wool, damp wood, and the faint sourness of smoke. Your knees are stiff. The straw beneath you feels heavier than usual, spongy and damp in the spots where the rain always finds its way through. You sit up slowly, trying not to disturb the younger children still bundled under the coarsely woven blanket beside you. Your breath fogs in the air. Today is laundry day, not by choice. There's no calendar or schedule pinned to your wall, just the accumulated grime of the past weeks, the smell of sweat and livestock soaked into every tunic and shift. The wooden tub stands outside waiting to be filled. Rainwater helps. Less to carry from the stream. A blessing in a way. You shuffle outside and feel the chill immediately. The ground squelches beneath your boots. Rain trickles from the eaves, splashing into puddles. You step carefully, aware of every muscle in your legs resisting the cold. The sky is a sheet of dull gray, unbroken and heavy. Chickens shuffle under the awning feathers, fluffed against the weather. A goat bleats somewhere. You gather what clothes you can find, tunics, smocks, hose, all stiff with dirt, and dump them into the tub. You add lye made from ash. It stings your hands. You scrub with a stone, fingers growing numb. One shirt is so threadbare it tears. You sigh but keep scrubbing. Everything smells of smoke and mildew, but at least it will be less foul by evening. Your wife joins you. Her fingers are red and chapped. Together you scrub, working in silence. The rain continues soaking through your cloak and into your shoulders. There's no fire outside, no warmth. Just the rhythm of motion and the hope that the clouds will break before sunset. Inside, the children nibble on the last of the bread. They chew slowly, staring out the doorway. You hear one sneeze, a wet, rattling sound. You make a mental note to find some elderflower later, if the weather allows. The priest swears it keeps sickness away. You don't really believe him, but you believe in trying. By mid-morning, the clothes are rinsed and hung beneath the eaves to dry. They drip steadily, strings sagging from the weight. They won't dry fully, not in this weather, but it's the best you can do. Your fingers ache. You flex them slowly, wiping them on your tunic. Back inside, the hearth needs feeding. You coax the embers back to life, adding kindling from the pile of half-dry twigs you've saved. Smoke stings your eyes, but soon the flames catch. The warmth is weak, but welcome. You sit close, rubbing your hands. There's no manor work today. The weather's too poor. Even the reeve knows you can't plow a field turned to soup. But that doesn't mean you rest. There's always something to repair. The bench leg is wobbly. The chicken coop latch is loose. The thatch still leaks. Every item you own demands attention, every pot, every stool, every tool you use. You fix what you can with what little you have. A strip of leather here, a spare nail there. Your knife, always close at hand, is worn but still sharp. You use it to trim a bit of wood for a spoon. The old one split last week, and it's been a struggle since. The children play at your feet. One uses a stick to poke at a bit of fabric tied like a doll. Another arranges rocks into lines. It's a quiet kind of play, no shouting, no running. They've learned not to waste energy. You hear a knock, 3 quick raps. It's your neighbor Osric. His face is ruddy from the cold beard dripping. He holds out a bowl with a hopeful expression. Any embers, he asks. His hearth went out. Again. It happens. He's older, his hands don't work like they used to. You nod, use a bit of charred wood to carry a coal from your fire into his bowl. He grunts, thanks, vanishing into the rain. You admire the way fire travels, one home's warmth lending itself to another. It's a strange kind of generosity. Not charity exactly. Just survival. The afternoon lingers slow and gray. The children nap. You rest against the wall watching the fire. Your stomach growls. There's a bit of pottage left now, more water than food, but it warms you. You eat slowly, letting the heat spread. Outside, the rain lightens, just enough for you to venture to the garden patch. The soil is soggy, but you check anyway. Turnips are still coming in, though stunted. You pull a few, wiping mud from the roots. They're not much, but they're something. As you work, your thoughts drift to the old stories. You remember one about a knight who turned into a tree, another about a woman who danced with fairies until her feet bled. The priest calls them foolish, but you still whisper them to the children. They help the nights pass. You recall your father's stories too, how he spoke of famine years when they ground acorns into flour and boiled nettles for soup. How he walked for 2 days to find work repairing a roof. How he once saw a whale washed ashore, great and bloated like a beached ship. You wonder if your children will remember your stories, if they'll have stories of their own. By evening, the rain stops. You light a rushlight, just one. Fat is precious. The dim flame flickers against the walls. The laundry drips softly. The room smells of wet cloth and smoke. Your wife slices the turnips into the pot. A bit of wild garlic goes in too, plucked from the hedgerow last week. The scent is sharp, earthy. For a moment it feels like a feast. You eat together, seated close. No words. Just warmth. Just presence. Outside, the village sleeps. You lie down once more, the straw still damp beneath you. The children curl up beside you. The pig rustles. A dog howls in the distance. And again you close your eyes, not in peace but in preparation. Because morning will come again, and you'll answer its call. Let's keep going. Morning slips in gently this time. No rain, no rooster, just the pale hush of dawn pressing against the small gaps in the shuttered window. You're already awake. You didn't sleep much. The wind had calmed, but your mind hadn't. You'd laid there, eyes open in the dark, listening to the pig snore and the youngest child whimper in their sleep. You listened to the silence between creaks in the timber frame and thought about the turnips, the pottage, the fact that the shoes are coming apart again. You rise quietly, careful not to disturb the others. Your knees crack as you straighten up. The hearth is dark. You kneel and blow on the ashes, coaxing a spark from last night's fire. After a few moments of patience and prayer, the orange flickers return. You feed it slowly, gently, sticks first, then a thick log. It accepts your offering. Today you'll gather firewood. Not just twigs from under the eaves, but proper logs from the edge of the woods. Dangerous work in a way. You're not supposed to stray too deep. The forest belongs to the Lord, and what doesn't belong to him belongs to no one. Or worse, belongs to things people don't talk about after nightfall. But wood must be found. The stores are low and winter creeps closer every day. You eat a piece of bread. It's hard, nearly a weapon. You dip it into hot water left from last night's stew and chew slowly. Your jaw aches by the time you're done. The children stir. One needs to relieve themselves, so you lead them out past the animal pens to the latrine, little more than a dugout trench with a worn plank across it. The cold air bites your skin. You hear birdsong. Back inside, your wife wraps a shawl around her shoulders and begins to spin flax into thread. Her spindle is worn smooth from use. Her fingers work without thought, calloused and efficient. The cloth she'll make won't be fine, but it will be strong. It has to be. You gather your bundle, a short axe, some rope, a piece of stale cheese for the journey, and head toward the tree line. The path winds between small hedges and muddy ditches past the well-worn trail that leads to the manor fields. You see other villagers already at work, bent over furrows' shoulders, hunched tools rising and falling in slow rhythm. You nod to them. They barely glance up. You all share the same aches. At the edge of the woods, you pause. Not from fear exactly, just caution. The stories live here passed down like heirlooms, cautionary tales of men who wandered too far and never returned. Sometimes it's the sheriff's men who catch them poaching. Sometimes it's something else. You never asked too many questions. That's not survival. That's curiosity. And curiosity rarely pays in this world. You move into the undergrowth, careful with your steps. The trees are tall, their branches still dripping from yesterday's rain. The ground is soft and rich with decay. You spot a few fallen limbs and begin your work. The axe bites into the wood with a dull thunk. Each swing reverberates up your arms. You work slowly, methodically, listening to the sounds of the forest around you, the occasional crack of a twig, the flap of wings overhead, the rustle of something small in the underbrush. You cut what you can carry. The logs are wet but solid. They'll dry by the hearth over time. You stack them with care, binding them tightly with rope and lifting the bundle onto your back. It's heavier than you'd like. Your breath catches in your throat. But you turn and head homeward, following the same trail with the same caution. A wrong step here, and you could vanish swallowed into the trees never found. As you exit the woods, the village opens again before you like a promise. Smoke rises in slender trails from a dozen rooftops. A dog barks in the distance. Someone is hammering at a cartwheel. Life always in motion. Back at the croft, you unload the wood beside the door. Your wife looks up from her spinning nods once and gestures to the hearth. You bring in a few choice logs, lay them near the fire to dry. The youngest child reaches out to touch one, but you gently pull their hand back. Splinters. They always learn the hard way. Lunch, if it can be called that, is a broth of cabbage and root. Your wife spoons it out carefully. Each child gets a scoop. You eat yours slowly, letting the warmth settle in your stomach. You pretend it tastes of chicken just for the illusion. Afterward, you mend the fence around the pig's pen. The boards are rotting. You hammer in a few new stakes using strips of old leather as binding. The pig watches you with bored disinterest. You can't help but envy its life. All it does is eat and grunt. Still, you know its end. Everyone does. Maybe at Christmas if the harvest allows. Maybe sooner if things go badly. As the afternoon wears on, the reeve stops by. He carries a parchment and a sour expression. "The Lord demands 2 hens this week," he says flatly, "and a day's labor." Friday. You nod because what else can you do? Argue. With what leverage he marks something on his parchment and walks on. You watch him go, his boots cleaner than yours, his cloak a touch finer. You've known him for years, but he stopped being your neighbor the day he became the Lord's eyes and ears. Evening creeps in slowly. The wind carries a sharper bite now. Leaves rustle outside. You patch a hole in the roof with a piece of hide. It'll hold for a few days, you hope. The children sit near the fire whispering stories. One of them makes up a tale about a dragon who eats turnips. You chuckle. Your wife hums an old tune as she folds the cloth she spun earlier. Her voice is quiet, almost drowned by the crackling fire. But it reaches you just enough to soften the room. Dinner is thin. More turnips, more cabbage. But there's a sliver of bacon, just enough to flavor the pot. The smell alone feels luxurious. Before sleep, you go outside one last time. The moon is full silver and solemn above the trees. You look up and exhale. The stars are scattered across the sky like spilled grain. You wonder if someone up there watches all this, if they care. You step back inside. The fire is low. The children are already curled together in their corner. You lie down slowly. The ache in your shoulders has settled into a dull hum. The pig shifts in its sleep. You close your eyes. And once again, darkness wraps around you like an old, worn blanket. The sun is already clawing at the edge of the sky when you wake. You've overslept not by much, but enough to tighten the day's rhythm. You sit up fast, too fast. A sharp twinge shoots through your lower back and you hiss under your breath. There's no time to rest, no room for softness in a world made of hard earth and harder expectations. The fire's out. You move quickly, grabbing yesterday's embers with a stick and trying to spark them back to life. A few anxious moments pass. Then there it is. The faintest curl of smoke, a flicker of orange. You breathe warmth into it with lips chapped from cold. It grows. You feed it twigs, then logs. You've done it 1,000 times, but each morning still carries the fear that it won't work. And without fire, everything stops. Your wife is already up. She hadn't slept long. One of the children had nightmares again. She holds the little one now, gently rocking them, murmuring something low and soothing. You don't interrupt. She catches your eye and gives the faintest nod, the way soldiers might nod before a battle. A signal that today will continue, whether they're ready or not. It's Wednesday, the middle of the week if you tracked time that way. But the only way you know it's Wednesday is the tone of the church bell. 3 long chimes at dawn. It means washing, it means taxes, it means bread making. It means labor for someone else. You break your fast with a scrap of leftover barley porridge and a half-rotted apple. You cut out the brown bits with your knife. Waste nothing, ever. The youngest eyes the apple as you eat. You tear off a piece and hand it over. They chew like it's a feast. Today you're working the Lord's land again. You shoulder your hoe and sling your worn bag across your chest. Inside are a few scraps of cheesecloth, some lard for your hands, and a small flask of watered-down ale. Your boots are slick with old mud. The soles are thinning. You've restitched them twice this year. The walk to the fields takes you past the chapel. Soon. Its stone bell tower looms above the village, casting a long shadow across the narrow lane. The priest is out front, raking leaves into a pile. He waves. You nod, but don't slow down. Not today. The Lord's fields stretch far wider than your own. Rows of barley and wheat stretch off toward the woods. There are others here already hunched and swinging mattocks into the dirt. The reeve stands nearby, arms crossed. He doesn't lift a tool, just watches. You take your place and begin to dig. The soil here is harder, drier than your home plot. Every swing of your hoe feels like driving a spike into rock. Your arms ache within minutes, and sweat begins to pool at your neck despite the morning chill. Around you, no one speaks. Just the steady rhythm of labor of steel on earth. Hours pass. The sun rises and the chill fades, replaced by a sticky warmth that clings to your skin. You stop briefly to drink from your flask. The ale is sour but wet. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve, smearing dirt across your brow. Then back to work. Around midday, you're given a short break. You sit beneath a withered tree at the edge of the field, trying to stretch out your legs. One of the other workers, Edric, a quiet man with a limp, sits beside you. He shares a strip of dried meat. You offer him a crust of bread. You chew in silence, listening to the wind move through the barley. Birds call from far off. Then the bell rings again. back to work. The afternoon is harder. Your arms are sore and blisters have split open on your palms. You wrap them with the cheesecloth from your bag, but it doesn't help much. The earth is crueler as the day drags on. Your back screams with every bend, every lift. You curse under your breath. But the reeve watches. So you dig and dig and dig. When the sun begins to slide behind the trees, the work ends. You stand slowly, legs shaking. You've barely finished your assigned row. The reeve frowns but says nothing. You think he understands, or maybe he just doesn't care enough to scold today. You trudge home, hands bleeding, feet heavy. The sky above is streaked with violet. Smoke rises in threads from the chimneys. The village exhales as if relieved to survive another day. Your wife meets you at the door. She sees your hands and moves without a word, fetching a bowl of warm water and an old cloth. She dips your fingers in. You hiss. She doesn't flinch. She's done this before. Too many times. Dinner is thin gruel with a few wilted greens. The children eat in silence. One of them hums a tuneless melody rocking back and forth on the dirt floor. The pig grunts from the corner as if reminding you that it's still alive. You talk about nothing. The weather. The patch of mold near the rafters. The cracked pot. Your wife mentions that the midwife visited the neighbor another baby on the way. You nod. You wonder how they'll feed it. Before bed, you walk outside. The wind smells of turned earth and wet grass. You stretch your back. It resists. You look up at the stars. They seem brighter tonight. Cold, sharp, distant. You think of nothing, just stars. You return to the croft, douse the fire, and lie down. Your hands throb, your eyes close, and morning is already on its way. Let's keep going. You wake in the dark again, not startled, not even groggy, just resigned. The aches in your hands haven't faded. The pads of your fingers are tender, the joints thick and sore. You flex them slowly, then sit up as quietly as you can. The straw rustles beneath you like dry leaves. The fire has burned itself out during the night, and the air bites with a cold sharpness that feels deeper than skin. You move toward the hearth and stir the ashes with a stick. A few glowing embers remain still breathing faintly. You blow gently, adding dry moss and twigs from the nearby pile. It catches slowly with effort, like coaxing life from a dying thing. You think of your own body worn down, patchworked together day by day. But like the fire, it burns on. Today is bread baking day. It's not just a chore, it's a ritual, a survival pattern as old as memory. You won't do the baking yourself. That's your wife's domain. But you'll fetch the flour, carry the water, and tend the fire. It's a joint operation, like everything in your life. Labor shared is labor survived. The children stir as the firelight grows. One of them coughs a wet, deep sound that makes your stomach twist. You'll keep an eye on that. Coughs can turn into worse things when you least expect it. Your wife has already mixed the dough, a crude blend of barley and rye flour with a handful of crushed oats stirred in for bulk. Wheat flour is a luxury you haven't seen in months. The dough sits in a wooden bowl near the hearth covered with a piece of damp cloth. It needs time to rise, though not much. Bread here is dense, heavy, meant to fill bellies, not please palates. You gather your tools, the flat stones, the paddle, the peeling board. Then you set out to the common oven. It's shared among several households built of stone and clay with a blackened arch and a wide, soot-streaked opening. You walk the path slowly, carrying the wood bundle for kindling on your back. The sky above is washed with gray, a quiet palette of early morning clouds. The village is still hushed. A rooster crows in the distance. Somewhere a dog barks. The air smells of wet earth and smoke. When you reach the oven, you find two other women already there. One is kneeling stoking the fire. The other is brushing ash from the hearthstone. You greet them with a nod, and they nod back. No need for words. Everyone knows the routine. The fire needs to be hot, but not raging. You help feed it slowly, layer by layer, then wait as the stones heat. The air inside the oven pulses with shimmering heat, the outer stones radiating warmth. You feel it soak into your fingers, easing the ache for a moment. Back at home, your wife has shaped the loaves short, round, and flat with rough edges and a deep score across the top. One of the children helps carry them, walking slowly and carefully, arms stretched out like a priest with an offering. The loaves go in one by one, laid carefully on the flat stone with the paddle. The smell begins almost at once, earthy, sharp, wholesome. It cuts through the usual stench of village life like sunlight through mist. Bread smells like survival, like home. As the loaves bake, you sit near the oven with the others. You talk quietly about the weather, about someone's goat that wandered off last week, about the tanner's boy with the lazy eye. You learn that someone in the next village over died of fever. You all fall quiet after that. Just for a moment. When the bread is done, you pull it out carefully. The crust is dark and cracked, dusted with flour. The inside is dense and moist. Perfect. You wrap the loaves in cloth and head home, warm bread in your arms and smoke clinging to your clothes. At the croft, the fire is steady, the children alert. You break one loaf and share it pieces passed hand to hand, crumbs falling into laps, the crust chewed slowly, the inside savored. For a moment there's peace, but the day has just begun. After breakfast, you head to the edge of the village where the path turns toward the hills. You've been meaning to check the snare line you set 3 days ago, thin wire strung between two trees, hidden in a brushy patch of rabbit trail. It's illegal, of course. All game belongs to the Lord. But everyone does it. Quietly. Carefully. It's the only way to get meat without trading half a season's worth of eggs. You walk with purpose, ears, sharp eyes scanning the shadows under the hedgerows. The snare is empty. Sprung the wire tangled, but nothing caught. You fix it quickly, glancing over your shoulder once, twice. The forest edge always feels like it's watching. Not with malice, just presence. You head back empty-handed, but on the way you spot wild onions. They're small, buried under fallen leaves, but you know the signs. You dig a few out with your knife, tuck them into your belt pouch. Tonight's pottage will taste better. It's the little things that carry you. Later, you help mend a neighbor's cartwheel. The spoke is cracked and the iron rim has rusted through. You offer what tools you have. The man Hal is thankful. He gives you a cup of milk as payment. It's warm, fresh. You drink it on the spot. The sun drifts lower. You spend the last hour of light repairing the roof again. A storm is coming, you can feel it in your bones, the air thicker, the breeze restless. You use a bit of thatch stored behind the pig pen and pray it holds. Inside, your wife prepares dinner. Pottage again, but with those wild onions now. You break open another loaf of bread, still warm inside. It fills the croft with that smell again. Safe. Human. The children eat quickly. One of them asks if the stars are candles in heaven. You smile and say yes. You tell them that's how the angels see us at night. Your wife says nothing, just watches the fire. Later, after the meal, after the chores, After the quiet settles over the village like a woolen blanket, you lie back on the straw with a full belly and sore hands. The roof creaks. The wind whistles outside. You stare at the ceiling, and sleep comes like it always does, slow, heavy, full of dreams you won't remember. Let's keep going. You wake to thunder in the distance, a low rumbling growl that rolls across the hills and settles over the village like a warning. The air inside the croft is thick, heavier than usual. The fire is out again, and your bones know rain is near even before you hear it. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb the little one curled up against your side. They're warm, still asleep, their tiny body breathing in shallow, even rhythms. Outside, the wind is already picking up. It slips through the cracks in the door, carrying with it the smell of wet leaves, overturned earth, and something older. Something metallic. Rain's not far now. You push the door open and step outside. The sky is churning. Heavy gray clouds sag low across the horizon like wool pulled too tight. The first drops hit your face cold, sharp. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling them run down your cheeks like tears. It's storm season. Storms mean danger. Not just thunder and lightning, but roof damage, flooded fields, livestock, panic, and even the threat of fire if a bolt strikes a barn. Your thatch is vulnerable. Everyone's is. The wind can tear it apart in an hour. You start checking it immediately, climbing onto the low eaves, careful with your footing. The straw looks intact, but you find a loose edge near the chimney. You tamp it down, tie it off with rope. Your fingers are already numb from the wet. By the time you return to the ground, the rain has settled into a steady curtain. Thin at first, then heavier. You pull your cloak tighter and rush inside. Your wife is feeding the children more of the bread from yesterday and some thin porridge. She hands you a bowl. It's warm. You eat it slowly, chewing mechanically, letting your mind scan through the day ahead. Work will be limited. You can't sow in soaked fields or repair fences in a downpour. But animals still need tending. Firewood still needs drying. The roof must still hold. The pig is restless. It doesn't like storms. You check its pen, reinforcing the sides with a few extra planks and a heavy stone along the base. The pig watches you snorting at the air. You toss it some scraps. It eats with enthusiasm, unaware of the clouds. The children huddle inside today, unable to play outdoors. They sit near the fire, whispering games to each other, pretending stones are knights and straw dolls are dragons. One of them draws pictures in the ash on the hearth. A crooked house. A stick-figure person. A sun with too many rays. You smile faintly. Your wife spends the morning spinning more thread. She has a rhythm to it, pull, twist, wind, repeat. It's soothing, somehow, watching her fingers work. You repair a stool using some nails you scavenged from an old cartwheel. There's always something to fix. As the rain thickens, a knock comes at the door. It's Alfred, the miller's son, barely 15. Soaked to the bone, his tunic clings to his narrow frame. Flooding, he says. The lower fields half underwater. You nod. Of course it is. That field's always the first to drown when the rains come fast. You grab your boots and a sack, tell your wife you'll be back before dark. She doesn't say anything, just hands you a strip of dried meat and a clean cloth for your shoulders. You and Alfred walk the path together, boots squelching in the muck. The rain lashes sideways, now stinging your face. The stream that runs alongside the village road has swollen into a miniature river. It swirls angrily, dragging twigs and leaves along its surface. You pass a coop that's collapsed under the weight of wet thatch. A chicken clucks angrily from a perch on the fence post, feathers drooping like wilted flowers. The field is worse than expected. Water has swallowed a full row of barley. Some of the young stalks are bent flat, others uprooted entirely. A few men are already there digging shallow trenches to divert the flow. It's muddy, frantic work, spades, slipping boots, sinking. You join in without a word. The next hour is a blur of soaked wool sweat and effort. You dig, scoop, push mud aside. The rain makes it almost pointless, but you do it anyway. What else is there to do? By afternoon, the downpour eases. Just a drizzle now. The trenches have helped a little. Not much, but enough to stop the worst of it. You trudge back home exhausted and soaked through. Your cloak clings to you like seaweed. Inside, your wife peels it off your shoulders, her hands firm but gentle. She helps you out of your tunic, lays it near the hearth to dry. The children cheer when they see you. One of them holds up a lump of dough and says they helped knead it. You nod solemnly, as though they've presented a crown. Dinner is roasted onions, barley mash, and a scrap of boiled egg. It tastes better than usual, though that could be hunger talking. You eat slowly, grateful for warmth and food. That night, the wind howls outside. You lie awake listening to it whip past the shutters, rattle the loose slats in the roof. You hold your breath each time it groans, expecting it to tear something free. But it doesn't. Your home holds, and eventually the wind fades. You fall asleep to the soft sound of rain dripping from the eaves and the even softer breaths of the people you love most in the world. Let's keep going. The air is different when you wake. Still damp, still chilled, but quieter, heavier somehow. No wind, no bird song, no distant barking. The storm has passed, but in its wake it has left a strange stillness, like the village is holding its breath. You rise slowly. Your shoulders burn with soreness from the digging yesterday. Even breathing feels like lifting a burden, but you don't linger on the pain. You pull your tunic over your head, still a little damp from where it dried near the hearth. The chill of the cloth against your skin makes you shudder. You open the door. Mist coils across the ground in ghostly tendrils hovering just above the mud. Everything looks grayer today, muted, washed out. The trees beyond the fields droop under the weight of water. The path through the village is soft and slippery. You step carefully, boots squelching with every move. Your wife is already outside laying the firewood out in the pale sunlight. The storm soaked everything. You help her spread it into lines, hoping the sun, if it ever shows, will draw the damp from the core of the lugs. She doesn't speak, just works, arms moving rhythmically, her hair pulled back and tied in a knot. She looks tired. Inside, the children are quiet too. One of them sits near the hearth, drawing in the soot again. Another chews on a piece of stale bread, staring into the distance like they're listening to something you can't hear. You ruffle their hair gently. They don't respond, but they lean into your touch. After breakfast, you set out to check on the neighbors. It's what people do after a storm. You walk past the green where the communal well now overflows, slightly water running down the slope and soaking the ground. You pass the blacksmith's hut. His roof held, but the forge is flooded. He sits on a stool staring at the water, chewing something that might be tobacco. You nod as you pass. He doesn't look up. At Elfred's house, the door hangs open. You call out once. No reply. Then he appears from around the side, carrying a sack of sodden grain. He looks up at you, shrugs, and says, "It's ruined. That's all." No anger. just the flat, resigned tone that everyone uses when nature steals what it wants. You help him carry the sack to his shed. It smells of mold and rot. You both know the grain can't be saved, but it's easier to carry it somewhere than to leave it lying out in the road. Sometimes work is just a distraction from helplessness. On the way back, you stop by the church. The door is ajar. Inside, the stone walls are darker than usual, soaked near the floor. The altar cloth is wet. A few candles have burned down to puddles. The priest kneels near the front, wiping the floor with a bundle of rags. You hesitate in the doorway, unsure whether to enter. He doesn't look up, just says, "We'll need more salt for the storehouse," and the beeswax has gone soft. You nod and leave without a word. You'll tell the Reeve later. He'll find someone to handle it, or tell you to. Back at the croft, your wife is inside again, shaping another loaf from the remaining flour. There's enough for maybe 3 more loaves before you'll need to barter again. The children are awake, more alert now, their silence broken by a whispered game of chase around the fire. You sit on the floor, watching them. It feels fragile, this peace, but you hold on to it. Later, you take your axe to the woods again, not deep, just near the edge where fallen limbs from the storm might be gathered. The sky remains overcast, but the rain holds. You find a large branch already snapped, half covered in moss. You chop it into manageable pieces, stacking them over your shoulder. As you work, you notice something odd, a flash of color. A strip of red cloth tangled in a bush. You step closer, heart suddenly pounding. For a moment, you expect to find something worse beneath it. But it's just a cloak torn and muddied, likely blown from someone's home during the storm. You fold it, tuck it under your arm. Maybe the Reeve will know whose it is. The forest seems louder today. The drip of water from the canopy, the flutter of birds startled from branches. There's movement all around, but you feel strangely calm in it. Nature has moods like people, and today she feels spent. Back at home, the sun breaks through the clouds for the first time in days. It floods the croft with soft light. The fire crackles and steam rises from the drying clothes near the hearth. Your wife sets a pot of lentils to boil. The children giggle in the corner. You take a moment to just sit. Your muscles twitch with fatigue, but the warmth helps. You hold one of the younger children on your knee and trace a circle on their back over and over until their head droops against your chest. Dinner is plain lentils, bread, and a few bitter greens, but it's hot, and it fills the room with a savory scent that feels almost like a celebration. You eat together slowly, watching the sunlight stretch across the floor. Afterward, you patch the cracked bowl again with pitch. Your wife sews a rip in her sleeve. The children drift to sleep in small clusters, heads against arms, limbs tangled like roots in the earth. Night falls more gently this time. The sky clear, the moon full. You lie back on your straw bed, hands behind your head, listening to the creak of the rafters and the soft breathing around you. The storm is behind you now, but winter waits ahead. Let's keep going. You wake before the sun, not out of necessity this time, but from a strange dream, now vanished, leaving only the feeling of it behind. Something about water, a boat perhaps, or maybe just the sound of it lapping against your feet. For a long moment you lie there, staring into the dark, listening to the shifting of bodies around you. The pig grunts softly. One of the children mutters something unintelligible in their sleep. A quiet peace hangs in the air, brittle and brief. The fire is mostly ash. You rebuild it as always, blowing softly until orange returns. The glow fills the room, slowly spreading warmth to your knuckles, to your knees, to your breath. You sit for a few minutes longer than usual, just letting the warmth soak in. You're tired, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of the sameness. The long grind of days that look too much alike. Today is tax day. It creeps up like rot in a root cellar, never loud, never sudden, but always there, always felt before it's seen. The reeve will come through at mid-morning, carrying his ledger, tallying what each family owes. It's a ritual as ingrained as baking bread or fetching water. You already know what he'll ask for: 2 hens, a sack of oats, a day's labor at the mill. He'll record your response with a blunt stylus, and you'll nod because there is no refusing. You eat quickly, barley porridge thinned with water, the taste barely registering. Your wife hands you a small bundle eggs wrapped in straw, a few sprigs of herbs to trade, and 1 hard loaf of bread. Just in case the reeve's mood is sour and he demands more than promised. You sit on the stool by the fire, wrapping twine around the handle of your hoe. The wood has begun to split, and though the iron head still holds, it won't survive another season. You run your thumb along the grain of the wood. It's smooth in the places your hand touches most. Tools are like family in a way. Worn, shaped by time, carrying silent history in their splinters. Outside, the village is already stirring. You see smoke rising from chimneys. Osric is leading his donkey down the path toward the stream. The carpenter's boy is hauling a bundle of kindling on his back. No one speaks loudly on tax day. There's a tension in the air, a sense that anything you say could be used against you if heard by the wrong ears. You head toward the green where the reeve has set up a makeshift table beneath a canvas tarp. Rain drips slowly from the edge, though the sky above is dry. He's already recording names, marking tallies in his book, with the authority of someone who doesn't need to explain himself. When it's your turn, you step forward, placing the bundle of eggs on the table gently. 1 is cracked. You don't apologize. He notes it, frowns, but doesn't speak. Your wife's herbs are next sage mint and what little marjoram she could coax from the garden this season. He smells them, nods, and makes another mark. Then the labor, your time. 1 day at the mill this week, likely hauling sacks of grain or cleaning the millstone's trough. You nod once and he waves you away. Behind you, another man steps up. You don't look back. You've done your part. You stop by the church afterward. Not for mass, it's not a feast day, but just to light a candle. It's something your wife asks you to do now and then. You kneel on the stone floor, cold, pressing up through your knees, and offer a silent thought. Not a prayer exactly, just a wordless hope that the cough in your youngest doesn't get worse, that winter will be mild, that next year the soil will be kind. Back at the croft, your wife is repairing a tunic. 1 of the sleeves tore clean at the seam, and her fingers work quickly with needle and thread. The children are outside gathering twigs from under the hedges. You join them, showing them which branches will burn well and which are too wet to bother. The youngest finds a feather and holds it up like a treasure. You smile. Later, you help repair the village fence. A few panels were knocked loose by the storm, and if the pigs get out again, they'll tear up the barley fields. You work beside Osric and another man you barely know. He moved here last spring, lost his wife to the fever, speaks little. Still, your hands find rhythm in the labor. You don't need to talk to share in it. At midday, your wife brings you a bit of bread and a wedge of hard cheese. You eat in the shadow of the fence, wiping sweat from your brow. The air smells like damp wood and dried sweat, but the sun has finally appeared. It's weak, watery, but golden, the way sunlight should be. By late afternoon, you return home. Your back aches, but your hands are warm and your stomach is quiet. You find your wife teaching the oldest child how to sew a simple hem. Their brow is furrowed in concentration. She speaks softly, patient and firm. You sit nearby and mend a strap on your bag. The room is filled with the soft, familiar noises of home cloth stretching, fire crackling, a spoon clinking gently against a hoe. Supper is cabbage pottage again, with a crust of bread and a sliver of onion for flavor. It's not much, but it tastes better when eaten together. Afterward, your wife sings softly an old lullaby her mother used to hum. The children fall asleep, one by one, curled like cats in the warmest corners of the room. The fire burns low. You sit beside it for a long while, staring into the glowing coals. The Reeves book is closed for now. Your obligations are recorded. You did what was asked, and tomorrow will ask again. But tonight there is peace. You lie down beside your family. The straw shifts beneath you. The pig lets out a breath long and low, and you sleep not well, not deeply, but enough. Let's keep going. The light when you wake is golden soft and slightly warmer than it has been in recent mornings. A rare break in the clouds. The shadows of the rafters lie across the dirt floor like quiet reminders that this house, this one-room world of yours, still stands. No storm, no fire, no sickness has taken it yet. You rise more slowly today. Your body protests the movement, but not as harshly. Maybe it's the light. Maybe it's the sleep. Maybe it's the small comfort of knowing that tax day is behind you for now, and you won't have to see the Reeves ledger again for at least another week. Your wife is already up whispering to one of the children near the fire. She wraps a scarf around their neck, bright red, fraying at the edge but still warm. The child's cough lingers but softer now, less wet, less frightening. You silently thank the broth, the prayers, the herbs, whatever worked. Today is mending day, the kind of day that sits quietly on the edge of all the others. No hauling, no plowing, no harvesting, just the endless list of little things that must be patched, fixed, tied, and remade before they fall apart completely. You begin with your shoes more holes than leather, now the soles nearly split. You've saved a bit of scrap from a ruined satchel, and you stitch a makeshift patch onto the toe, your needle thick and blunt, the twine scratchy but sturdy. It might hold another week, maybe more if the weather stays dry. The children help with the garden, pulling weeds from the cabbages and checking for snails. One of them finds a frog and insists it's a good omen. You play along, offering a dramatic nod and warning the frog to keep watch over the barley. They laugh, and for a moment the garden feels like a kingdom. Your wife spends her time repairing the bedding. The straw is refreshed new bundles brought in last week, and now she sews old linen sacks into pillowcases, stuffing them with dry grass and a few feathers saved from the last slaughtered hen. She sings as she works a quiet, tuneless melody that loops in on itself endlessly. The neighbor's girl comes by with a message her mother is boiling bones and offers to share the broth if you have a carrot or two to spare. You do. You give her 3 small ones and tell her to keep the largest. She smiles, eyes wide, then runs back barefoot, her hair streaming behind her like loose hay. By mid-morning, the sun warms the village green and people come outside with their own mending projects. You see Osric darning a torn cloak, his tongue poking from the corner of his mouth in concentration. The carpenter's wife braids rushes for a new floor mat. A group of children chase a wooden hoop, laughing until one falls and scrapes a knee. No one cries. Just a wince, a dusting of dirt, and the game resumes. You sit with your back against the croft wall, polishing the handle of your hoe. The new twine you added has loosened. You tighten it again, wrapping it more firmly, then rub a bit of pig fat into the wood to keep it from cracking further. Your hands are quick now, your eyes sharp. These little tasks are second nature, like breathing. Later, you join your wife in scouring the pots with ash and sand. The soot clings to your fingers, gritty and black. The water is cold, but the sun warms your back, and the breeze carries the scent of baking bread from somewhere nearby. You breathe deeply. It's rare to smell something that doesn't belong to animals or smoke. At noon, you eat a simple meal, a scrap of bread dipped in leftover broth, a few wilted greens, and one precious sliver of cheese saved from last week's market. The children chew slowly, savoring it. You let them finish your crust. Afterward, you take a walk along the edge of the village. Not far, just enough to stretch your legs and check the hedges. You inspect the snares again. Still empty. But the prints in the mud are promising tiny paws a clear trail. Maybe tomorrow. You reset the wire carefully, fingers quick and quiet. On the way back, you pass the old widow's house. Her door is open. You call out gently, and she answers with a tired smile. Her roof is sagging. You promise to patch it next week. She offers you a turnip in thanks. You tuck it into your bag without argument. Turnips always matter. The afternoon drifts lazily. You repair a cracked spoon, then help your eldest child carve a whistle from a bit of willow branch. The sound is terrible, high and screeching, but they're proud of it. Your ears ring, but your heart doesn't mind. The village feels soft today, slower. No shouting, no barking. Just the occasional giggle, the murmur of voices, the rustle of wind in the trees. You wish every day could be like this. It can't. But it is now. At supper, you eat with a quiet gratitude. The shared broth from the neighbor's pot adds richness to the pottage. You recognize the flavor of your carrot and smile. Your wife adds a bit of dried mint on top, a luxury. Afterward, you all sit near the hearth. One of the children asks you to tell a story. You hesitate, then begin something about a knight and a stolen chicken, a talking ox, and a forest of silver leaves. It's nonsense, but they love it. They curl beside you, eyes heavy, hearts light. As the fire dims, you lie back on your bedding. The mended linen beneath your head feels soft. The patched shoe sits by the door. The frog is still in the garden, or so you tell yourself. Outside, the stars return, and sleep finds you gently this time. Let's keep going. You wake in darkness, but it's not the usual quiet dark. There's a sound, a slow rhythmic creaking, and then a low clang. You sit up, heart quickening, until you realize what it is. The mill. The wheels turning again. The rains have swollen the stream enough to set it moving, the heavy wooden paddles now groaning under the force of the water. It means grain will be ground today. It also means labor yours. The reeve had claimed a day of your time for the Lord's due. You'd nearly forgotten. But the sound of the wheel reminds you. You rise quietly. The fire is cold. You don't bother reviving it. There's no time. You eat a hunk of bread left from yesterday, tearing off a piece and chewing as you lace your boots. They're stiff, still damp near the toes. You tuck in some linen for padding. Your wife stirs behind you. She doesn't speak, just pulls the blanket higher around the little ones and gives you a small nod. A farewell. An understanding. You leave before dawn, walking the muddy path toward the stream, guided by sound rather than sight. The mill looms ahead, its silhouette cut sharply against the pre-dawn gray. The water wheel spins slowly, flinging spray into the air. The rhythmic groaning of the gears fills the space with a kind of mechanical breath. Inside, it's louder. The grinding stones, the clatter of grain into hoppers, the constant churn of motion. The air smells of wet wood and dust. The miller is already at work, directing two others, you and another village man you barely know, toward sacks of grain waiting to be loaded. You spend the next hour hoisting lifting tipping sacks into the wooden chute that feeds the stones. Each bag is heavy course against your arms, the grain shifting within as you carry it. Your back strains, your thighs burn, dust clings to your skin, gets into your mouth, your ears, your eyes. You don't complain. No one does. The sun rises slowly through the open shutters. A shaft of light cuts across the floor, illuminating the fine mist of grain dust in the air, turning it gold. It's almost beautiful if you weren't so tired. At mid-morning, the miller gives you a brief rest. He offers a crust of bread and a swig of watered ale. You sit on a barrel and eat in silence, watching the wheel turn outside. The stream's water flows fast, urgent, carrying twigs and leaves past the wooden slats. You wonder where the water goes after the village. You've never followed it. Back to work. You sweep spilled grain from the floor, clear the trough, replace a loose gear pin. The miller is particular. He checks your work, then nods once. It's the closest thing to praise he'll offer. By afternoon, your arms feel like lead. The sun climbs higher, then begins to fall. You finish your shift just as the wheel slows. The stream has weakened a little, or the miller is saving it for tomorrow. Either way, your work is done. You walk back slower than you came, every step dragging. The sun hangs low, casting long shadows over the fields. Smoke rises from chimneys. The village exhales. Back at the croft, your wife has a bowl of soup waiting. It's thin but hot. A few onions, some broth from yesterday's bones. The children sit beside the fire, one of them holding a rag doll with missing arms. They greet you with quiet smiles, not expecting gifts, just happy you're home. You wash your hands in the basin, brown water pooling as the dust slides from your skin. Your arms tremble. You eat slowly, then lean back against the wall, eyes half closed, letting the warmth of the fire soak through your bones. After dinner, you sit with your wife mending a torn satchel together. She sews, you hold the edges taut. The children play nearby. You're too tired to join them, but you watch. Later, as they sleep, she rests her head on your shoulder. Her hair smells of wood smoke and dried mint. You don't speak. There's no need. The fire fades to embers. The croft is quiet. And in the distance, just before sleep claims you, you hear the wheel creak again. Tomorrow, someone else will tend it. But tonight, it turns for no one. Let's keep going. You sleep deeply, more than usual, as though your body has taken full advantage of the rare luxury of exhaustion, giving way to true rest. When your eyes open, the fire is already lit. Your wife must have risen early. The scent of wood smoke drifts through the air, joined faintly by that of boiling roots. You lie still a moment longer, watching shadows dance across the beams above. For once, there's no urgent reason to move. It's a holy day. No plowing, no threshing, no digging or spinning or hunting, not even a walk to check your snares. Today is for prayer rest and careful observance, though how restful it truly is depends on your position. For you, it is a pause, a thin, wavering silence between two heavier burdens. You rise and dress slowly, pulling on your best tunic, only slightly patched at the elbows. You smooth your hair with a wet comb and dust your boots. Your wife has tied her apron tighter than usual, and the children look cleaner, their faces scrubbed, their fingernails less black. It won't last, but it counts for today. The bell rings, once faint and distant, calling the village to the church. You walk together as a family. Down the trodden path between the crofts, past the animal pens, past the empty field where yesterday's barley chaff still blows gently in the breeze. Other families walk ahead and behind you. No one speaks much. The silence isn't oppressive, it's expected. The church is small stone and cold inside, but it smells different than everything else in your life, like wax, incense, old wood, and something intangible, reverence, a space set apart. You find your place in the pews, pressed shoulder to shoulder with others. The children sit on the packed earth floor near the back legs, crossed eyes, wandering. The priest begins. He reads from a Latin text you don't understand. You've heard the same words your entire life, but their meaning still hovers out of reach. You know when to bow, when to cross yourself, when to murmur amen along with the others. The rhythm is its own kind of comfort. In a world where everything changes with the weather, the liturgy does not. He preaches a homily this time in your tongue. He speaks of obedience, of tithes, of heaven and hell, the wide gate and the narrow one. You don't follow every word, but the meaning lands with weight. Give, serve, be content, suffer well. The usual themes. After the Mass, you step outside, blinking into the sunlight. A crowd gathers briefly near the green. Children chase each other between skirts and boots. Someone strums a lyre. An old man tells a tale about a knight who tricked the devil with a walnut shell. You laugh softly. You've heard the tale before. A feast is out of reach, but the village has shared what it can. A small table is set with a few bowls, bean cakes, soft cheese, dried pears, and thick bread torn into chunks. You contribute your last boiled egg and take a bite of cheese in return. Its sharp and strong makes your tongue tingle. The children enjoy a bit of honey on stale rye and grin as if it were a banquet. Later, you walk with your wife to the stream. Not to fetch water, just to sit. It glimmers in the afternoon light, clearer now that the rains have settled. You watch the current twist around stones, tugging grass and leaves along its path. There's peace in watching something move so freely, so endlessly. She asks about the coming week. Will you help the widow with her thatch? Will you fix the broken gate, or do you think the snares might finally catch something? You answer gently, not with certainty, but with calm. It's not about solutions. It's about speaking the worries out loud so they feel less sharp. Evening comes with a hush. You walk home under a sky turned pink at the edges. The children sleep early, still full from their rare treats, bodies warm from sun and laughter. You and your wife sit a while longer near the hearth, your shoulders touching your hands, quiet. You speak of nothing in particular. You think of how many holy days you've lived through. Dozens, hundreds, they blur together. Yet each one is like a breath before the plunge, a stillness before the world resumes its pull. When the fire fades and the room darkens, you lie down on the straw, drawing the blanket up to your chin. The roof creaks. The pig stirs. Your wife murmurs something soft, wordless, like the end of a lullaby, and then sleep takes you. Tomorrow is waiting. Let's keep going. The next morning greets you not with wind or rain, but with frost. A thin sheet of white clings to the edges of the thatch outside, dusts the garden patch, and turns every blade of grass into a sharp little spear. When you push open the door, the cold hits you like a slap, clear, bracing, unkind. Your breath billows in front of you in small clouds, and your feet ache before you've taken 2 steps. Frost means the seasons are turning. Winter hasn't arrived yet, not truly. But it's coming. You can smell it in the air, feel it in your joints, see it in the way the sun rises later and sets sooner. Everything sharpens in the days before winter needs tempers, fears. You bundle yourself tighter, wrapping your cloak around your shoulders. Your wife has already begun moving about, gathering what's left of the herbs to dry, before the frost bites any deeper. The rosemary has already yellowed. The sage still holds on. You help her hang the bundles from the rafters, rows of green slowly crisping, each leaf carrying a memory of warmth. The children are sluggish today. One of them sniffles. The little one's hands are purple at the fingertips. You rub them gently, then send the older ones outside to gather kindling. Not firewood, not yet. Just twigs, bark, anything that will catch easily. You'll need to be smart about your stores now. You walk the edge of your small garden now frozen and hard underfoot. The cabbages are stunted. A few turnips remain underground, but the tops are wilting. You dig up what you can, careful not to waste any. Even a shriveled root matters. Later you head to the communal granary to check your grain allowance. The building is solid stone, thick-walled, built generations ago. Inside, the air smells of dry husk and dust. A few other villagers are already there, talking in hushed voices. You nod to them, then kneel beside your section and run your hands through the oats. Less than you hoped. Enough for a few more weeks if stretched. If no rats get in. If no rot sets in. You tie your sack shut tightly and sling it over your shoulder. On your way back, you notice the reeve speaking with two unfamiliar men. They wear better cloaks than anyone in the village. Their boots are clean. One carries a rolled parchment. Land surveyors, maybe. Or tax collectors from the next estate. You don't ask. You don't want to know, but you walk faster. At home, your wife has boiled the last of the potatoes with a pinch of dried thyme. The smell is simple but good. You eat it slowly, savoring the heat. The children dip crusts of bread into the broth, chewing quietly, eyes heavy. After the meal, you take inventory. You open the store basket beside the hearth onions, 3. Garlic, 2 heads. Dried peas, just enough for 3 pots. Salt, very low. Ale, half a jug. Lard, nearly gone. Your wife adds a few notes to the tally, marking the wall with short charcoal lines. You've done this every year. It doesn't get easier. By mid-afternoon, you and the children gather together to stuff the cracks in the walls with rags. The wind finds its way into everything beneath the door, around the shuttered window, even through the roof where the thatch has thinned. You patch it as best you can, though you know the worst nights will still find their way in. The village feels quiet today, as if everyone is bracing. No one sings, no one laughs loudly. Even the dogs are subdued. You hear hammering down the lane, someone reinforcing a barn wall. Somewhere a baby cries. You take a walk to the edge of the woods before dusk. Not to hunt, not to set snares, just to see. The trees stand stiff and silent, their leaves nearly gone, the ground a carpet of brown. You pick up a few sticks on your way back, small ones, dry ones, and tuck them under your arm. The sky turns orange, then red, then deep purple as the sun sinks behind the hills. You stop for a moment and just watch. Even after all these years, the sunset can still take you by surprise. Back at the croft, your wife has lit a rushlight. The flame flickers weakly, but it's enough to eat by. Supper is a mash of barley and onions. There's a sliver of salted pork saved for just such a day. You share it carefully, slicing it thin, making it stretch. The children drift off early, curled together near the fire. One clutches the rag doll from before, now missing an eye. Another snores softly. You and your wife sit close, shoulder to shoulder, saying little. Her hand rests on your knee. Before bed, you check the firewood stack once more. It's not enough. It never is. You lie down beside your family, the straw crackling under your weight. The cold presses in even through the blankets. Your breath fogs the air. You wrap your arm around the child beside you and close your eyes. The frost will be heavier tomorrow. Let's keep going. When you wake, there's a layer of frost on the inside of the door. Not just on the roof or the garden or the buckets left outside, but inside. The cold has seeped into the walls, into the very breath of your home. You can see it delicate and glistening in the early morning light, etching tiny ferns across the wood. You stare at it for a long moment before you move, letting the stillness settle around you like another blanket. Then you shift slowly, and the cold makes itself known. Your joints crack like firewood. Your hands feel stiff, swollen. Even your breath feels colder, sharper. The child curled next to you has their nose tucked deep into your side. You gently shift away, tucking the blanket tighter around them. The fire is dead. It takes longer to start it this morning. The wood is cold and damp. You cradle a coal from last night's embers, praying it's still alive. It is just barely. You blow and blow, hands trembling until a curl of smoke rises. You add slivers of bark, dry grass, the twigs the children gathered. Flame catches, flickers, grows. It's light. It's warmth. It's hope. You feed the fire carefully, like you would a baby. Your wife wakes, coughs once, then wraps her shawl tighter. Her face is pale. You can tell she's colder than she lets on. But she rises anyway, wordlessly, beginning the morning chores. The same rhythm, the same motions, because survival leaves no space for complaints. You step outside. The ground crunches under your boots. The garden is dead now, officially. The last of the turnips you dug yesterday rest in the sack beside the door. There will be no more until spring. The sky is a pale, washed-out blue. The kind of sky that offers no warmth, only clarity. The fields beyond the village are hard with frost, a pale white crust hiding the black earth beneath. Nothing stirs, not even the birds. Today you fetch water again. The stream is slower now, a skin of ice forming near the edges. You use a stick to break through and fill your bucket. Your hands go numb immediately. The wind moves through the trees with a whisper, cold and thin. On your way back, you pass the widow's cottage. Smoke rises weakly from her chimney. You stop, knock once, then leave a small piece of firewood by her door. She won't ask, but she'll know. Back at the croft, the children are huddled by the fire. You hand them the bucket. They pour carefully, using only what they need. Every drop is precious now. Your wife ladles out the morning meal, thin porridge with a few crumbs of dried apple stirred in. It's barely enough, but it's warm. After breakfast, you sit by the hearth and begin work on a winter chore that has no end, twisting rope. You use dry rushes, coarse flax fibers, bits of old cloth. You braid them into lines, tying them off carefully, hanging them near the rafters. Rope wears down fast in winter. When it snaps, something breaks, a pen gate, a sled, a harness. You don't let that happen. Outside, the wind picks up. Your wife mends wool gloves, stitching the holes with thin, stubborn thread. The children help sort the firewood, stacking it by size. You supervise, silently counting each piece, judging how long the pile will last. Not long enough, you walk down the lane toward the granary. The reeve is there, of course. Watching. Always watching. You nod as you pass. He says nothing. You're not here to talk. You exchange a handful of eggs, your last, for a small sack of barley. It's less than you hoped for. But it's all they'll give. On the way home, you see the priest in the churchyard scraping frost from the steps with a broom. His face is drawn. He nods once, then gestures toward the sky. First freeze, he says, as if you hadn't noticed. There'll be deaths before the thaw. You nod. You know he's right. That night, you and your wife do the winter count. The food, 5 sacks of barley, 1 jar of dried peas, 2 onions, half a sack of oats, no more lard, no butter. The wood, 3 stacks, 2 dry, 1 still green, enough maybe for 2 weeks. The clothes patched, some too small. Boots failing. The odds uncertain. You sit together afterward near the fire, arms wrapped around your knees. The room is silent except for the soft sounds of breathing and the occasional pop from the hearth. And then your wife says it quietly, but without fear. We've seen worse. You nod. You have. Frost is not the end. Winter is not death. Not if you endure. You lie down together on the straw blankets drawn close. The children are warm, piled in beside you, like pups in a litter. You kiss your wife's forehead and pull the blanket tighter. Outside, frost creeps across the earth. But in here there is fire. There is breath. There is sleep. And tomorrow. Again. Let's wind down. You made it. You endured the cold mornings, the endless work, the damp straw, the sore hands, and the hollow meals. You trudged through the mud, stood in line at the Reeves table, held your breath during storms, and whispered quiet hopes into church pews. You gathered kindling with numb fingers. You mended clothes that were more patch than fabric. You bartered a single egg for a day's worth of warmth. You watched the seasons turn not from behind glass, but from inside them. You felt them in your bones. And through it all, you kept going. You didn't have a soft bed or a roof that didn't leak. You didn't have clean water on command or food that waited for you behind a door. But you had a fire. You had the will to strike flint and coax it into flame again and again, even when it seemed like there was nothing left to burn. And more than anything, you had the patience to endure. That was life in medieval Britain. Quiet, brutal, repetitive, but full of meaning in the smallest acts, in tending, in repairing, in surviving. You didn't need to be a knight or a lord. You didn't need armor or a sword. You only needed to last the winter, and you did. So now rest. Let the frost cover the fields. Let the stars blink overhead. Let the pig grunt softly from its pen, and the fire crackle gently in the hearth. You're home. You're warm. You're safe. Tomorrow will come. But not yet. For now, just breathe.